Hello, everyone. Welcome to the DMV Business Show. I'm your host, Otto Sevilla, and today I have a very special guest for you. Latane Meade is the CEO and co-founder of Allied Title and Escrow. Welcome to the show.
Hey, appreciate it. Excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course, the pleasure's all mine. Really, it's an honor to have you on, and I can't wait to get started in the journey, your personal journey to what led you to where you are today. But before that, Lanny, if you could just give the audience just a brief general overview of who is Allied Title and Escrow.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, Allied Title and Escrow, we technically started working on the business in 2016, did our first deal in January of 2017. There were 450 title companies when we started. So we figured, we should probably be a little different if we're going to break into the industry. And so, 5, 6 years later, we're in 11 states. We have 70 employees. We process about 400 to 500 deals a month. It's really been a combination of many factors. Great people. Many times it's people that weren't in the industry who saw the industry differently. I think there's a combination: great service, understanding how to provide great service. Really understanding what the agents wanted. Excellent marketing is critical. Mixing things up with fun slogans like "Always Settle" and "You Need Closure," which we have a pretty good merchandise line now that's pretty popular around town. It's a combination of many things, and we'll jump in that today. I think the biggest thing, though, to sum us up is, when I bought a house and moved back here, it was a pretty boring experience. And I was like, man, this seems like there's so much more opportunity there. You're buying a house, it should be a celebration, right? Whether the house is $100,000 or $3 million, you should be trying to make those people feel special at the closing table and make it a celebration. So that's kind of what we always think about when we put together any of our programs. And then the other side of that we've really been focused on the last 2 years is, we want to provide great service throughout the transaction, but there's all these other things that agents need, whether it's a retention program or great marketing or, how should they build their business? So we put together a division that focuses on that on a daily basis. And so, hey, if you're a real estate agent, have you ever thought about doing this to get more business? Have you ever thought about this to stay in touch with your old sellers and buyers? And so, it's always evolving. It never stops. Some people are like, hey, do you just have a playbook for everything you do? And it's like, it always changes. The market's changing, marketing strategies are changing. So you always have to be focused on a consistent basis on, how to create something great for your customers.
It's so true. The market's always changing. Therefore, I personally believe as a business, we should also be changing and evolving, because if not, you're getting left behind. And that's great that you're doing that, because in some industries, yours included, even what I'm in my industry as well, commercial real estate, most people don't want to change.
Nope.
Yeah, they're settled on their ways.
You want to get a team that's comfortable with change, and
Yeah.
you're always going to have people that might not be kind. That's good, because you're able to bounce ideas off. Maybe we're moving too fast. Maybe we're doing whatever. There's always a good balance there, right? That we're always looking for with different types of people in our company. But it really, we want to do things that work and continue to focus on those, but we have to always be open for an evolving market and evolving industry.
You mentioned this all started when you moved here. So I understand you're not originally from the DMV area. So where are you from? Where were you born?
Yeah, so I was actually born in Virginia Beach.
Oh,
Went to James Madison University, lived in Arlington after college for about a year and a half, and then moved to San Diego, California, and I was there for 13 years. So, I started working for PricewaterhouseCoopers in this area, and I was in the tax division, and my background was more marketing, and it just wasn't what I was looking for. Even though it was a great company, I learned a lot, and I was playing in adult sports leagues here, so like intramural sports for adults. You play flag football, you go to the bar afterwards. I was like, man, this would be a lot of fun. And randomly, I had this guy I went to elementary school with, who in Virginia, he lived out in California, and he had just started a sport and social club and was looking for a partner. And I had two other friends. We had visited there about 6 months before that, and we had already determined we're going to move out to San Diego one way or the other, whether we had jobs or not. So Yeah, he offered me a high paying job, I think of 15,000 a year. And so I went out there and
In
it was
San
awesome.
Diego. Wow.
It was San Diego. I shared a room with my roommate. So we had two adult men sharing a small little room, two different beds jammed next to each other. And we had, I think, five people in a three-bedroom house. And we kind of, we all figured out our path. And, eventually a few years later, we had 100,000 people playing adult sports leagues throughout San Diego. And then that moved to large parties like New Year's Eve parties. Eventually, we did a mud run that we'd have 15,000 people at. And then we got into the obstacle racing industry, and we had an obstacle race called Ridiculous Obstacle Challenge, which was kind of based after the TV show Wipeout, as well as there was a Japanese show that had, hilarious obstacle races. And so we kind of took some inspiration there. And that did really well. And eventually the TV show Wipeout on ABC reached out to us and they wanted to partner together. So we took an obstacle race called Wipeout Run around the world. Australia, overseas, 30 cities in the US. And then lastly, we had a 5K night race called Electric Run. So we partnered with the founder of Ragnar Relay, and that was a wild run. 30 cities on that one, Australia, Malaysia. I mean, it was all over the place. So, I learned a lot throughout all these things, which was my background was marketing. I was in an industry, a sexy industry, of sports and entertainment. It was a lot of fun. But what I also realized was everyone in this industry was really, really good at marketing. And so some of these races, you'd pop up a website and there'd be a guy who's putting on a big event, but he's terrible at putting the event on. And so, but it didn't matter because it never happened before. So people are signing up. So it was really hard to, you eventually could prove yourself that you had a great event, but a lot of times they did these obstacle races because they were bucket list items. Like, hey, I did Tough Mudder once, or I did Spartan Race once, or, I've now done Electric Run. And even though they might have had a great time, they just never did it again. And so it was really hard to grow a business when your retention rates were at like 12%, even though you were getting a lot of 5-star reviews for great service. And so I thought that was really interesting. This is, in a sense, it's a bad industry. So I learned a lot there. And I remember saying to myself, I want to eventually one day get into a boring industry that has bad marketing, that is going to be around. That's not a fad, whatever the case. So I actually sold that company. It was the Sport and Social Club with the races. And I was at a point where my wife and I were both in the East Coast. We had always told our parents we would move back. I'd been there for 13 years. So, we sold the business and we moved back to Northern Virginia. And I was going to take a year off and just figure out what I wanted to do with my life. This was 2016. So I was at home and I was working at home. My wife was working from home. And I just always thought, oh, I'd love to work from home. That sounds fun, to wake up in your pajamas and go to whatever. And I did not do good there. I was getting restless. So after 1 week of my year sabbatical, I told my friend Matt Paulson, who's my current business partner, hey, I'm going to come into your office and I'm just going to figure out what I'm going to do with my life. So I would just go into his office, and more than anything, I would bother him because he was trying to run a law firm. And he was just shutting down a title company that he had done with his cousin, whose cousin had moved out of the industry. And he's like, you know what? I can't do the law firm and title, so I'm going to focus on the law firm. So he told me about title, and I thought it was kind of fit the thing I had always looked for, which was a boring industry. And I noticed there was not a lot of marketing in the industry. I mean, some of the top title companies, they didn't have websites. Almost none of them had a social media presence. No one was really advertising their brand or doing anything fun with it. And so I asked him if he wanted to partner together, and he said, sure, whatever. And then I went home that night and built a website. And then the next day we had Ally Title. And that's kind of how it started. And so once we started, the first thing we started doing was asking people, what do you not like of your title company? What do you like? And they basically tell you everything that you need to have a successful title company. And then it was a matter of kind of putting that together.
Lenny, if I can just take you back to San Diego, you mentioned you sold the company, you were doing it for 13 years. So you started as an employee making the whopping 15 grand a year. So did you eventually evolve and got ownership, or did you build your own thing there, or how did that work out?
Yeah, it's a good question. So part of me going in for 15,000 was, hey, I want to be an equity partner in this thing eventually. Why don't we work together for a few months and see if it makes sense? So we did that. So let's call it 6 months in. I became a 30% owner at the time of the business. And then we worked together for about 5 years. And yeah, we just kind of wanted to go different directions with the business. And he was the majority owner, I was minority. So actually, I left the business for about a year at the time, and he eventually just wanted to get out of the business. And so I brought in a friend of mine, and we bought him out. So the original founder, we bought him out, and so we owned that together. And then we built the business from there. But yeah,
Okay.
I mean, it took a little bit where I was a minority owner, and then came back and was majority owner. But yeah, it wasn't a straight path there.
In that business, I'm curious. I mean, I guess that the money comes from the doing the events and then you charge there, or is
Yeah,
that how it,
exactly.
okay.
So if you play in a flag football league, you're paying $80 to play for 8 weeks. So most of the revenue is coming from the sports leagues. And then in the obstacle racing industry, very similar, you might be paying anywhere from $70 to $100 to do a 5K obstacle course, right? Or a nighttime 5K. And so, yeah, there's some sponsorship money there, but the majority of it really came from the registration fees.
I'm sure it's a lot of logistics and operations behind every event, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, when we had the obstacle race, we had 35 employees. We had 7 semi trucks that we would
Wow.
take all the gear from one city to the next. And you're going to think, I mean, it would take 4 days, 4 to 5 days to set up the obstacle course. Then they would run, you'd have 400 people at the event helping to put it on, a lot of volunteers, as well as staff. And then it could be raining and all that stuff. You still have to take down the obstacles, the pouring rain. I mean, it was a hard business. It was a draining business. And I mean, you get up at like 3, 4 a.m., for these events, and you're leaving at midnight the next night, like
Yeah.
it's a very draining business. A lot of respect for people in the event space and just the amount of hours that they put into these events.
It sounds also that you sort of learn your marketing chops doing this, and you applied some of that here in the title industry. What are some things that I guess you took from that industry, the sports marketing and event business, and have applied it, I guess, in a different way, or maybe somewhat similar here to title and escrow?
Yeah, it's actually very similar. So the Sport and Social Club was called Vavi Sport and Social Club. Eventually, it was purchased by the Waka guys in this area. They're from this area, and then they sold it to another company called Volo, which is a software company in the sport and social industry. But yeah, I would say a lot of what we're doing at Allied is very similar. So if part of creating a celebration for our buyers and sellers is when you come in our office, we want it to be fun. So we have ping pong tables, arcade games, beer on tap, cold brew coffee on tap, music playing, a lot of really fun merchandise. So, this is like, one of our new sweaters that we just got in, soon to be out there. But like, we give all this stuff away to buyers and sellers. It's just part of us building a brand. Take what you want. And the key is it's gotta be the softest thing ever, so people want to wear it. And it's got to be cool too. Like, it can't be too corporate and boring, or no one's ever going to wear it.
Yeah.
So, we've got just, a ton of different merchandise that, we just give away to everybody. It's just part of building a brand. And in a shocking development, I actually, throughout Arlington and Old Town, I will actually see people wearing it all the time.
Oh, really?
So it actually, it does its job. It does, people are wearing it around town and spreading our name. So, a lot of it comes down to what I learned there, which is, fun. Like if you want, like we want to create a work environment you want to go into, right? So you're going into work, you want to be there. Well, if you want to be there, you got to create a fun experience for employees, right? And for the team. And so that's a lot of what we did. The other thing was, there was very, very little social media in this industry. And so, we're posting daily videos now across our different channels, and it really does work. Now we are working with some of probably the top 20, 25 teams in the DMV area. We work with at least half of them. And some of them have built their brand through social media. So there was a guy, Phil Gertis, who's in the Tom Ferry Network, who spoke last week at our JV Mastermind meetings that we do. And, he has over 200,000 social media followers. And now we've created this mastermind group of different successful agents who can share with each other. This is what I'm seeing in the market. This is what worked for me. This is what didn't. So, even though we're a boring industry, and we always say title is boring, we make it fun, we're still trying to put out fun content, so people remember us. And so they're seeing our offices, and it doesn't have to be title related, right? But they have to see us consistently. And that's really the key to social media and marketing.
And in your industry with Allied, it's almost like you have two clients. You have your referral partners, the realtors, right? Who that's how you get the end buyer who's settling on the home. So you have to sort of market in both directions.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, they're truly our clients, are the real estate agents, right?
Okay.
And lenders and builders. But with that said, the buyers and sellers, yeah, they're a client also. But what we want to do is we want them to have the greatest experience ever, so that we're an extension of our agents, right? That we're working with. And so, but I mean, a lot of our marketing is going to reach both of them. With that said, most buyers and sellers don't know who the title companies are in the area.
That's
right?
true.
So they're gonna trust the recommendations from their agent, who provides them with suggested title companies.
So for you, the focus is on the realtors or the home builders or that. Okay.
It is mainly, yes.
Yeah. You mentioned the merch and all the swag you have there, and always settle there and everything else. You mentioned another one. Is there a process as far as when someone comes in to sign? I understand you also sign everywhere. I think even Top Golf, you guys go everywhere. As far as the process, and you mentioned you also give them little trinkets and swag for them to take with them.
Yeah. So in all of the offices that we come in, we have an actual merchandise area. So and it's free for everyone, to take whatever they want. But yeah, like you said, we close anywhere, anytime. So we'll go to people's homes, and it goes back to, we have a client experience division. We're the first one in the industry to set one up. And, we have 7 people in this client experience division. And we ask them to think about on a daily basis, like, what can we do to make the experience better for everyone? Buyers, sellers, agents, developers, lenders, on a daily basis. And so part of it's like, hey, imagine you're the buyer seller coming in the office. What would you want, right? And so that's where we came up with ideas of ping pong and arcade and music. The other thing is, hey, what would be a really fun place to close at? Like, what about Top Golf? So we set up a partnership with Top Golf where they can go to any of the Top Golfs around the area. We sign the documents on site, and then they end up playing Top Golf, right? Okay. And so it's a great way to celebrate the experience. So it's just something we challenge ourselves on a daily basis is, what else can we do to just make the experience better for everybody?
If I can just take you back 5-6 years ago when you started Allied, you decide with your partner, with the attorney, to do it. And what happens next? You build the website, and then you have to get people in, right? Get the customers.
Yeah. So what we first did, and the reason why I thought we should move forward with it, is I went to JMU. A lot of my friends are in the real estate industry in this area. Same with my business partner. So we've got, 20 different friends that are either real estate agents or lenders or builders in this area. And so it's like, well, I mean, shit, we should at least be able to break even off our friends and then grow from there, right?
Sure.
And so that was kind of the start of it, right? And then it goes back to network. The first thing we ever did was we sent out an email to everyone we knew in the area saying, hey, Matt and Latane are starting this title company, Allied Title. Any agents, or lenders or developers, any intro you could make would be much appreciated. And just asking for that, we probably got 10 to 15 meetings set up, right?
Okay.
So, but we had a horrible office. We were on Washington Boulevard in Arlington. It was not the vibe we were going for at all. So it took us 8 months to get out of that building. So at first we were like, we'll close anywhere, anytime. So we don't want people coming in our office. It's not the look and feel we're looking for. So let's create convenience. And then eventually we'll get in the office we want. But it took a little bit longer than expected. I mean, for us to actually get out of there and then eventually do what we had. So we had in one room, we had a processor, and Matt and I, and we just slowly built it. And then we're like, all right, we need a post closer, and then we need another processor. It was, really what we told people was like, look, we're the owners, we're available, we're always going to be available. Even today with 70 employees, our clients, all agents have our cell phones. So like we don't want to ever get rid of that, like, feel where we're available to solve problems, because we are, and so we've still been able to maintain that even as we've grown. But yeah, it was, I think one thing that I did looking back was like, all right, there's 450 title companies in the area. Like, what's our differentiator? Well, the good news is they have horrible marketing in this industry. And, whether good or bad, most title companies are started by attorneys. And, just because it makes a lot of sense for attorneys to have title companies. Most attorneys don't have a marketing background. So we thought there was an edge there. My business partner, he litigated title claims for 5 years. He knows anything and everything about title. I know nothing about title still. But my background comes from the marketing, so it's a good team. And I know about how to provide great customer service because I've owned customer service business. So, it's figuring out what we have. And so it's like, all right, let's start reaching out to agents. If I say I'm a owner of a title company, no one's going to meet with me. So what are we going to tell them in case they're interested? And it was like, hey, I've owned some businesses in the past, which I've sold. And I'd love to sit down for coffee and tell you what I did on the marketing front, just in case it can help your business. And I remember we got an email list of 10,000 people. We sent it out, and over the course of the next 2 to 3 months, we got over 70 coffees set up from us. And then those 70 coffees led to intros from the other people we met. And looking back, 6 years later, we still work with a lot of these same people, and so you got to find what is that differentiator you have. You got to lean into it and make sure you're pushing with that, because a lot of people are doing the same thing and they don't want to meet with another title company.
Lenny, I that's very different. So you approach these people, referral partners, into just saying, I just sold a company, my background's in marketing, maybe I can help you with marketing, let's meet for coffee. Not at all in that original email or phone call before the meeting, the face-to-face was title and escrow mentioned. It was just, hey, let me help you with your marketing.
Yeah, I did say, hey, I'm the owner of Allied Title.
Okay.
And I'm new to this market, but the focus of the email was on, my experiences from previous companies and what I learned. Because
Sure.
like, they're not going to care, about another title company, right? But, it was in there, so they had an idea who I was. That makes sense.
Yeah, so it was all about just providing value to them and helping them with their marketing or sales efforts.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah, because I'm thinking as a realtor, I'm not a realtor, but if I was a residential realtor, getting all these calls from lenders, hey, let me help you out, title company or whatever it is, or home staging companies, whatever it may be. And most of them are like, no interest, no interest, no interest. So to stand out, you do have to do something different, which is what you did.
Yeah, exactly.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
in a shocking development, I remember I did something where I almost screwed myself and messed up. But it actually, I'll tell you what happened. So I sent the email out, and I had a friend that knew Carrie Shaw, who was the largest team in the area at the time. And I removed her from the thing because I'm like, I'm not going to send this spam email and put her on it, because I'm going to probably get an introduction to a friend and I'll just do that with her. Well, I removed her corporate email, but apparently her personal email is in there. And she actually saw the email, and she's an entrepreneur, and she responded and said, I'm interested. Let's go meet for coffee. So I actually tried to remove her from the email, but her personal email was on the list, and I ended up meeting with her. And we now have a joint venture with them, which, who knows if it would have happened if we hadn't had that coffee that day. That was the start of a relationship. It took a couple, probably a couple years before we started working together, but it started creating the foundation of a partnership and a relationship that we have.
I mean, you just mentioned that from the initial interaction with Carrie, it took a couple of years into finally getting and earning that business, right?
Yes. She actually had her own joint venture. So, I mean,
Okay.
that's very rare that you end up working with someone that already has a joint venture. But it goes back to how are we going to be different? And we just kept creating tools and things that made us different. And, eventually, if you're constantly focused on innovating, it's hard for, I mean, it's if people aren't doing that, eventually you have products and services that are just, I think, much better than your competition.
Yeah. So joint venture meaning that all of the closings that they and the team do is going through Allied Title.
Yeah, so you set up a new entity. Technically, it's a new title company, and they own a percentage. And we this is a model we've been doing since 2018 now. We need a certain amount of volume to make the entity profitable. But yeah, she and her team are, they have a percentage equity of this title company, and so they're incentivized. In fact, she actually has two joint ventures, one of the very rare. They have enough volume to do that, but most people do not have that.
Sure.
In fact, most times team leaders need to come together to bring enough volume to form them, because you have to break even.
Sure.
Yeah, I think like a year ago, she did 750 million across the area. So it's a lot of volume, right? That she's doing, and she was able to do that. So yeah, it's something that we started doing directly with agents,
Okay.
where title companies in the past a lot of times had done it with brokerages. And our belief is we care about the agents, and that's who we believe in. And if they switch from Keller Williams to Compass or Compass to whatever, it doesn't matter to us. We're going to provide them great service no matter what, but we're going to create those relationships directly with the agents.
That JV, is it under a different name or still under the Allied Title brand?
Yeah, it has its own name.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. But our parent company provides a lot of services.
Sure.
For RESPA, we have to be paid for those services, and so it ends up, it's all above board. And we hired the top RESPA experts in the country to approve it and set it up, so there's no gray area. So the benefit of the joint venture is they still get to use all the services that the parent company provides, but they also end up owning a small percentage of a new entity too.
That's interesting. I didn't know that's how it worked. I mean, you provide all the back of the house services type of thing. And yeah, just a different brand. Okay, that's great. You mentioned you're in several states. How did that expansion come about?
Yeah, it's a great question. A couple of them, like we went to North Carolina and Florida because we went on vacations. So I went to North Carolina and we met this guy who owned his own brokerage, and we're like, well, we've actually set up joint ventures in the states that we're in. Technically, we just like this guy a lot. And North Carolina is a really hard state because the title premiums are lower there, the price points are lower. But we found this partner that we just really believed in, and who had 80 agents on his team, and we felt like we could grow something together. And so we just kind of went down that road and gave it a shot. And 3 years later, we have a successful North Carolina business. Florida, we went down to a vacation with one of our investors, and we were in Boca, and we were like, should we try to hire an attorney down there and see where it goes? And so we started doing that. Eventually one of our employees, one of our top salespeople was who did all our recruiting as well as sales. He was in this area, the DMV, and he was moving to Texas. And he was like, do you care if I try to get a large joint venture set up? We're like, fine by us. Good luck. And he actually was able to get a lot of interest. And then we would meet these teams over Zoom, kind of share with them why we're different, our vision, how we're going to hire great local people if we all come together. And, Texas is now, probably our most successful state outside of this area.
Really?
Has done extremely well. So, now we're looking at, not every state makes a ton of sense for title. Some of them are attorney states. So like we don't make as much money. The attorneys make most of the revenue. So there's a certain amount of states across the country that we're focused on going to and expanding to. And so now we're looking at those options too.
Are you thinking of staying sort of Texas and then back to the East Coast, or are you thinking more West Coast expansion?
No, it really comes down to title friendly states.
Oh,
So,
okay.
like, for example, California is the hardest, state in the country for owning a title company. It's just it takes a ton of money. It takes well over a year to get set up. It's very hard to do it. Nevada is actually a really good state for title. Colorado is a good state. So for us, it's finding those strategic partners that make a lot of sense, like those big agent teams in those states that are title friendly. And if all those things align, that's a great reason to go. When we went to Florida, we didn't have large partners. We kind of just, hey, let's try this out and see what we can do. And I would say Florida has been more of a challenge for us than other states because of that. So we've learned a lot over time, like, hey, there's certain ways to grow that make more sense and are better use of time and resources.
You mentioned most of your background has been in the marketing side. I'm curious, and we briefly mentioned that you grew up in Virginia Beach area.
Yep.
Growing up there, what were you into as a kid? What did you like? I don't know, sports, or you just with background in marketing. I'm curious, how were you as a child?
Yeah. So I played a lot of sports, loved sports, played every season of the year, a variety of things. I think I played 4 sports in high school. And then, but like my whole life, I didn't like school that much. My parents really wanted me to study all the time, and I didn't enjoy it, and almost got to the point because they wanted me to do it so much, I didn't want to do it. And I was always interested in entrepreneurs. So I remember, like, I would read books on Richard Branson and Mark Cuban, and like, I was very interested in that, and I was always looking at different types of companies I could start. So whether that was having a grass cutting business in the neighborhood or doing lemonade stands or whatever the case was, it was something I was always very interested in.
And this was
And
during high school?
yeah, I mean, I would say
Okay.
this was probably before high school. Like I was cutting
Okay.
grass, maybe like
Yeah.
7th grade, 8th grade, stuff like that. And then lemonade stands before that. So, it was something I was always interested in. I've always gravitated towards how would you turn this into something that actually is a product that you create and sell.
That's
And
interesting.
so, yeah. And so when I went to JMU, I loved it there. I was having a great time, and I still had no idea what I wanted to do. I believe I was a finance major to start in the business school, and then just to try to stay 5 years, I convinced my parents, I'm going to do a double major in marketing also. So my parents would never pay for 5 years if I didn't have a double major. Eventually, at the time, my 4th year came around, I was like, well, I'm kind of a little not, a little over college, so maybe I don't want to stay an additional year. So I eventually graduated in 4. And I really loved all the marketing courses I ended up doing. I think I've always just naturally been interested in marketing and advertising and branding and watching like commercials on TV. Like, does this really is this done well? Does it make me want to buy the product, or is it just kind of like white noise? It's
Yeah.
always I've always thought about whenever I watch any type of commercial.
Is there, at a young age, reading and doing these sort of side hustles and reading these autobiographies of successful entrepreneurs, was there anyone in the household or close family members that was entrepreneurial or had any type of business that you had some type of inspiration from, or no?
I would say no. I mean, my dad was an orthopedic surgeon, so I mean, he took that kind of long route of
Yeah.
education and becoming a doctor. And my mom was a stay-at-home mom, so she didn't have a business necessarily. So, I think it's I feel it's one of those innate things, for at least for me. It was just something I was always interested in, and something I always kind of and part of it maybe was, I didn't like school that much. I didn't enjoy it that much. And so, after, reading a lot of these books, it seemed to be something similar I was reading about too, where they didn't enjoy it much either. And they're,
Yeah.
that's kind of, it's my guess on it.
Yeah, it was a little similar to me. I mean, growing up, I would read autobiographies like about Buffett and other people, investors, entrepreneurs, and No one in my family, just like you, was immediately in a business, but my dad would tell me stories about my grandfather who did have a business, not here, but back in my home country. And he would tell me share little snippets about what he was doing, this and that. And that always interested me growing up as a kid. And even when I was a kid, I clearly remember there would be just adults talking, and I would be the only child in the conversation, just sitting there next to my dad or my uncle or anyone, and just hearing, just looking and observing. And I would play with the kids, but not much. I would just be with the older people.
Yeah, that's funny. No, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, I remember like constantly always trying to figure out like how the hell where do you start if you want to start a business? How do you file an entity? Like, or think like where does that even? So now it's really easy to a degree. Like you can set up a website overnight, but I always thought that was so interesting, like
Yeah.
these large corporations, like where do you even begin? And like that's the one thing I've kind of taken away from is like, and that what I see people that are either good at sales or good at doing businesses is like, don't overthink it, just move things forward and keep moving things forward and just keep doing and you'll figure it out.
Lenny, what would you say drives and motivates you?
Yeah, for me, I like, I would say a challenge of some kind. So, like I enjoy playing golf. I enjoy doing stuff like that when I have some time. But, and like, even with the company, if the company was just DMV and we weren't doing anything different, it would be hard for me to get excited.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of part of why, like, I feel like we're not trying just to expand. But when we see these opportunities pop up, it's hard not to follow them. It's just like we can't help ourselves in a sense. So, I think the key, in my opinion, I think I like little wins. Also, like I coming in the office and drinking my coffee and checking in. There's like the little basic things of a day.
Mm-hmm.
But then I like having those projects that we know, we're going to put a lot of time and try to create something from scratch. So in fact, right now, funny enough, we've had a lot of people reach out to us and say, we love your marketing. Can we hire your marketing team to do it for us as real estate agents? And so, I'm like, unfortunately, we can't because we need them to do our own marketing. So our guy that was heading up our marketing had said, hey, look, I've always wanted to run my own marketing agency. And you got all these people that are coming to us asking, like, why can't we set up a marketing agency and like help these people out? So we're actually in the process right now of creating a website called pandabirdcreative.com. And, we have this guy that's really good at video editing, and we have all these agents who are like, hey, how do I consistently get video out on the internet? I also need a logo. I need a website. So, we haven't advertised it at all. It's the first time I've spoken about it. And now we have like 6 clients who we're going to start doing work for just because they heard we were doing this. So I think this will become a value to the agents because for affordable prices, they'll be able to, get a whole marketing team behind them.
Yeah.
And it's going to be good for them. And it's also come sticky because, if they're, they now, I'm talking to them on a consistent basis. Our other team is, and hey, are you using LA Title? Or are you not? It helps also with that too, I think to a degree. But like those are projects like that, which are exciting, which are fun. They become overwhelming sometimes when you're doing too much at once. But it's figuring out that balance of like challenging yourself, but not burning out also. Right.
Yeah. That marketing agency, are you starting here local at first with local agents or?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. We just had, some agents be like, gosh, I'd really like to somehow work with you guys on marketing or hire you. It's like, yeah, we're happy to share some ideas. And then eventually we're like, hey, this guy really wanted to do it. And so we're going to set it up. And right now, I think we've got like recently just had 4 agents who we were like, yeah, we're doing this. They're like, I want in. We're like, okay, let's talk about what that looks like. So it's just kind of organically forming. And we're asking them like, what do you need? What do you want? Like, oh, I want consistent videos, 3 to 4 times a week, or, hey, I don't have video testimonials for my clients. Can you go reach out to my clients on my behalf? set up a meeting, shoot them, edit. Like that's a lot of work. Like actually we can do that. In fact, we can even do that on Zoom, which will speed up the process, right? And the benefit of Zoom is we can put this background here, always settle or LA title. We can do that for you guys, so it's good branding. So like it comes down to you tell us what you need, we will look at it and try to figure out if we can make that happen. You know, so for us, it will be, hey, we'll be your marketing team for the next 6 months or a year. That's where it's going to make more sense, is more long-term customers versus one-off projects.
Okay. You have such a rich business career, from selling successful businesses in the past, starting Allied, growing Allied, and other companies now spawning off from it. Is there anything that you're most proud of during your whole business career?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, I'm glad that I took the chance from going to like PricewaterhouseCoopers, just going to give it a shot and start my first business, and like, I think there's something about once you start that first business, I think it's hard to go work for yourself again, in a sense. And so I'm glad that I've stayed on my own journey throughout the many years. I typically like to change things up. With that said, I had the title company in California for 13 years. I've been doing this for 5 to 6. So, I'm glad I took that first chance and just went ahead and did it. I think there's a lot of value and just enjoyment you get out of, hey, this is our idea, let's actually go achieve it.
Yeah.
Like for a while, we had a processor who we just had to keep convincing. I know you've been with us 6 months and we have the worst office in the world, but we have a vision for it. We're going to get a nice office. It takes some time. So like 5 to 6 years later, that employee is like, I can't believe there's 70 employees here now and there's 11 offices. And like what you said was actually true, but it took a while to get there. And I didn't believe you for the first year and a half. So, you might believe it and you might want to do it, but sometimes it's hard to move quickly, whether it's just breaking leases or having the funds to do so, and you never know. So
you just mentioned your processor and your 70 plus team there. How do you go about finding the right people, the right team members, especially growing so rapidly?
Yeah, I would say, luckily we brought on a recruiter full-time who understood what was important to us. And, at the end of the day, though, and I remember saying this at PricewaterhouseCoopers when I was there, like my manager told me, she goes, I hire these people, they're great at interviewing, but then they get here and work here. And it's just, you find out only after they're here whether they're really a great fit. And I agree with that. I think you can do your best to interview people. I think it's important to get multiple people from your team to interview them. We have everyone take kind of like a personality test once they get into our company. Probably should do that before they even start. And I think at the end of the day, although you can do a lot, you just don't know for sure until they get on board with you. Mm-hmm. And it's very critical in our industry. Like a processor is a very important part of the title experience. We as a company, if we bring someone in and we find out they're just not good at their job or they're whatever, we can't keep them. Like it's too risky. I mean, we might take us a year to win an agent, so we can't use our processor, have one bad deal, we never talk to them again, right? Mm-hmm. So it's really important. We try to be very clear. You got to be great at your job. We're going to provide you freedom. We're not going to micromanage you. In the past, a lot of employees at title companies just went in the office every day that were processors, and there was a lot of micromanagement. Like we manage our business one way only, really, which are the main way we do it is we reach out to every customer on every deal and we ask them how we did. And we get people tell us, hey, there was this issue on the deal. However, your processor was great and they solved it and fixed it. Awesome. Or, hey, I couldn't get a hold of my processor. I reached out numerous times, everything, like you start to find themes. And if it's consistently happening, you might have an issue. If it's a one-time thing, hey, stuff happens all the time. So, we got to keep great people. And if they're just not a fit for what we're doing and believe in what we're doing, then there's not a fit here. And it's probably best for them to find what they are good at. you know.
Do you have a specific trial period for most roles or no?
Um, I mean, sometimes it's obvious right away, and we just say
Okay.
it's, you know. So we don't do trial period because if we find out it's not a fit in day three, then we need to
Yeah. Okay.
we
You
need
need
to
to cut.
make a move immediately.
Yeah. Because I
Yeah,
know
and
some
we've tried.
companies do like 30 or 90 days, but I guess you do it faster. That's good.
Yeah, and I think it is what it is. And these people might be really good at something else, or they might be good at another title company. It doesn't mean they're whatever. It's just, for us, it's like proactive communication, responsiveness. Like there's certain core things that are super important, and it just doesn't work if we're not all aligned in that way.
Lenny, what advice would you give someone if someone came to you and said, "Hey, I want to open my business. Title, not title, doesn't matter what industry, what field. Any suggestions or pointers they should look into at first, starting off?"
Yeah, I mean, I would say, in today's day and age, it is so easy to get a website set up. Like I didn't have website design background, but I built our first website. I went on Squarespace and figured it out, right? And so I'm not saying go quit your job right away, but you can at least in parallel start the process and see if you like it, right? So, build a website, build a logo. I mean, 99designs.com. I mean, it's the fact you can get 100 logo options from designers out there for $300. It's a no-brainer, right? And so go through the process, start doing it, see what it's like, and then, I think you can work your job and do this on nights and weekends for a while and see if you enjoy it or not, right? So I wouldn't say, hey, just go, you get to a certain point. I mean, I did this at my last company. When we bought back the Sport and Social Club, I had another full-time job, and it was a great job. And I did that job full-time. My business partner worked in the other company, and then I did nights and weekends. And at a certain point, we saw that this thing was getting legs and there was growth, there was opportunity here. And, I would quit my other job and come back to the company, and so there's never a perfect answer. But at the end of the day, the one thing you just have to do is just start moving things forward, build a website, do a logo, test it out, see what happens. And if you can't do that, then it might not be for you, because you can't use excuses like, how am I going to pay for this? How am I going to do it? I mean, I was making $15,000 a year. You figure it out. You bring out a credit card. You do what you have to do. And, that's kind of what I bring.
It's so true. It just reminds me of this conversation I was recently having with someone who has a corporate job and big sneakerhead into shoes and some other things, cars. And I was like, hey man, just why don't you do this on the side? See where it goes. I see it's your passion. See, maybe there's something there, maybe it's not. And it's a long-term thing. It's going to take some time before you see any money, but
Yeah.
you might as well do it on the side. Single person, no children. And then I follow up with him like, hey, what's up with that? Nothing. And I'm like, man, here I'm married. I have 3 young kids. And I'm like, come on, you can make the time. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? What are you doing? Like, do you really want it? Because you're not showing me like you do. I mean,
Yeah.
it's your life. Go ahead. But like you said, maybe they don't really want it. I don't know.
Exactly. Hey, look, there's good, bad, and ugly with entrepreneurship too. I mean, like I've definitely taken on too much and been overwhelmed. I mean, even my last business where I left it after 5 years, I remember being like, man, I'm the minority owner. I can't really control where this thing goes. I had gotten from like $15,000 a year to like 35, 5 years in, and I was making 50,000 my first job out of college, right? So it's like, I mean, I'm putting in some time. I'm not making a lot of money. It's not always easy. I mean, in fact, even with the obstacle races, we were in a fad industry, and it was hard to create long-term value there, because people did the races and they checked it off their list and they didn't want to come back. So, it's not always easy. It's not always successful. Now, did I learn a lot throughout? Absolutely. I learned a lot. Did I enjoy it when I was doing it? Most of the time. And so at the end of the day, for me, it comes back to like, am I enjoying what I'm doing? And is it like, is it enough financial reward where it makes sense? And
Yeah.
that's kind of, I try not to care about money in a sense. Like if it comes, great. I need to have a certain amount, of course, to pay bills, and that is very important. But I try to think about on a daily basis, like what keeps me motivated. It's like, it's having a routine of some kind. I like coming in the office, I like getting my coffee, and I like challenging things. And it's like, it's important for everyone to look at that for their own thing. I mean, we have an employee right now who gave their notice, has been with us for 4 years. And our belief is like, we always support people no matter what they do. They were with us for a time. We're always going to appreciate them. And she's like, I got 10 years left to work and I want to take a shot at like partnership. And I was like, I get it completely. I get it. It makes sense. And we support you. And, and so like, it's funny, like in our industry a lot, people will leave and then we're firing you, screw you. Like, we've never taken that approach. We never will. You've been here with us. We appreciate that. If you don't want to be here with us, we don't want you to be here either. So like, there's plenty of work out there for everybody and stuff. But I'm just rambling now. So
you just mentioned about having a routine now. Is there any specific habits or traits you feel that you have that have helped you, whether for business or just personally?
Yeah, I would say I saw one of my friends recently and he was like in amazing shape. And I'm like, what is going on here? He goes, it's an anxiety relief for me. I just feel better mentally. He's like, I'd like to tell you it's something else. And I was like, you know what? That makes a lot of sense. So like over the last year, I've never been good at working out consistently, but I was working out in the morning and just that mentally, I felt so much better. Now, unfortunately, I hurt my shoulder like a month ago, so I haven't been able to do it last month. So I'm a little irritable right now. But, I think that's one thing I've definitely noticed recently that, I just feel better. I think better. I come up with better ideas. And so that's something I will get back into when I find out what's up with the shoulder. Just had an MRI last week. And then for me too, coffee. I like coffee in the morning. It kind of gets me going. I've got 3 kids also. So, I'm not a morning person. So it really helps get me going.
Yeah, that's good. I agree with you with the working out. For me, it's just huge. I call it I call it iron therapy. It's my therapy just with the iron, with the weights. But I have to do it every morning because even my wife sometimes when I don't do it, she was like, you need to go work out. I'm just more snappier with the kids and my my attention span, or that's my therapy.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. That makes a lot of sense.
What would you say is your biggest challenge today at Allied Title?
Yeah. I would say with a growing organization, right? It's making sure that in a sense, it's almost like everyone's treated fairly. And let me respond to this guy real quick. I just let him know I'm supposed to be at a lunch in a little bit. We're all good. We can go as long as we need to. But yeah, so like if someone started, in the beginning or, let's say, and now we're at this size organization and it's important that like things are done a certain way, but it wasn't done that way for them initially, right? It's like, hey, there's no perfect answer to it. It's like, hey, we've now grown to the size. So it is a little different. So like, how do we make it work in a degree? And then maybe it can't work. Maybe it's like, well, no, I like smaller organizations or I like it done this way. So in a sense, it's thinking about how do you set up the business so even when you do double or triple in size, it still works for people and and you don't lose your mission statement, you don't lose your vision, you don't lose what's important, right? And so I would say, we hired a director of employee development, and they've really helped. With 70 employees, if I got a question for you. Hey, I got a question for you. That's a lot of questions. That's a lot of thought. So having someone that can at least have those initial questions, find out what the real issue is. Can they solve it first? If we need to meet and figure it out, cool. But I think like having someone like that has been really helpful to us because we were at a certain point, this is like, let's call it a year ago, we have a lot going on. We have a lot moving, but it felt like I was doing HR full time, which is not something that I enjoy necessarily doing or something that's like my strength at all. So So I would say it's kind of how do you manage the growth? How do you set up the systems so that you don't lose who the company is as you grow and it still works.
Yeah. What do you know now that you wish you would have known at the start of your business career?
I would say that there are industries that are profitable, and there's reason why industries have not been profitable to date. And so, for example, sports typically is not a very profitable industry. A lot of people that are in the sports industry, they they're making very little money, or they do it for their passion, right? And which is great. And there are certain sports industries where there is money, obviously the NFL and the top leagues and stuff like that. Sure. But even some of the people that work for those companies, they're still underpaid to a degree. So for us, we were looking at the sports industry and we're like, all right, let's figure out how to make money in this industry. Making money provides a lot of benefits, such as, we had a sport and social club. We have a lot of people not making a lot of money. Like, I want to see my employees make a lot of money, so, there you can invest in things you wouldn't be able to invest in as the company, like you create a better experience for anyone and everyone, the more money you make. So in a sense, what I think I did do is I kept trying to figure out how to make money in an industry that wasn't very profitable. And so did I spend too much time doing it? Potentially. And, on the other side, real estate's a profitable industry, right? And so, over the history of time, title insurance companies have done very well. So it's interesting because we kept coming up with these really good marketing ideas, but never seemed to be that profitable. And then we kind of took some of those ideas we learned from that industry, brought it to a profitable industry, and we did very well. So, for me, I have no problem kind of moving on from things. I think I was stuck in this gray area of we're going to figure it out. At a certain point, though, is it figure outable, or are you in an industry that's just only has so much potential?
What's an industry that you like now that you're not in and that you think it's profitable and you would like to get into, or at least piques your interest?
Yeah. I mean, what I like looking at is, it almost goes from like a branding standpoint or a website. Like, what industry am I looking at where I'm like, God, the brand looks bad, the websites look bad.
Yeah.
I feel like there's an opportunity there in today's day and age with the amount of resources. You shouldn't have a bad brand. You can hire people to make it look good. So I think there's opportunities there. When I'm going to make up some name. I'm not even saying this is accurate. Your local auto shop that's near you, like, does it still look like a website from like the 90s? Like for me in our industry, what's really important, there's like 5-star reviews. And so I'm looking at some of these things. I'm like, man, you don't even have a Google business listing. You're an auto shop. If you had 50 5-star reviews, which you probably would if you just set it up correctly, you would get so many referrals, right? So like, I think there's a lot of mom and pop shops that are just not living by Fortune 500 marketing principles, which would make their business a lot better, right? So that's a good question. It's a good question. I don't know. But from a high level, it's like a lot of times it's like, wow, that industry just looks so archaic. Like there's probably an opportunity there.
There's a lot of opportunities there if that's the case.
Exactly, right?
Yeah. Coming to an end here now, what does the future hold for you and Allied? What's the next 5 years look like?
Yeah, I mean, I think, one thing like we talk about in the marketing team is like, hey, let's create content that people are watching consistently that aren't even in our industry. Like that, like how do you get like your videos to have 10,000, 50,000, 100,000 plus views, and you have really valuable content so people are paying attention, right? So from a marketing perspective, I mean, I think that's going to be a lot of fun for us. Our branding is really good. We just redid our website. It's getting better and better. But we have a lot of ideas with video content that we can do things on a consistent basis that we're going to stay in front of people. So that would be something we're definitely looking at. We believe in agents, and the agents are controlling the volume. We want to partner with the biggest and best agents nationwide. we continue to be, we want to be the best title company in the country, not the biggest. If we are the biggest, that's okay, but we can't lose the quality and what makes us who we are. And so, there's so much opportunity out there. I mean, I think look at the fastest title companies in the area. We're up near the top of the list, but all the other title companies are at least 20 years old. We were like one of the very few that was within a few years old. So, I think we're still in the very beginning stages here of kind of what we can do and where this goes. And, it's going to be a fun ride.
Are you thinking ride this till the end? Or I know you sold the previous business. Are you thinking maybe there might be a sale in the future? I don't know. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I would say that, we'll always have a conversation if it makes sense. Like if there was some type of, opportunity where they could help us expand faster than we could do with our own money, or some, we're going to listen, but we're enjoying what we're doing now. It's feasibly possible. I have this the rest of my life. Does that mean I'm involved as the CEO of the company? I might not be. Maybe I have a lesser role. Maybe it's time for someone else to come in and bring better ideas to the table. But we don't know. We're enjoying what we're doing now, and we think we're still in the beginning stages of growing this.
Yeah. What do you like to do for fun when you're not busy working?
So, 3 kids. So I'm pretty busy. I have a wife, 3 kids. So
How old are they?
9, 6, and 3. So we've got some sports going on the weekends right now. That takes up most of my time. I do love golf. So I try to take clients out on Friday afternoons because I can do it for business and also, have some fun. You need that release. Like I was even telling someone the other day, like if it was for me just working all the time and just working where I wouldn't do it. Right. Like I have to have something, a hobby of some kind that I'm doing, that I'm working on, that I'm able to do my own thing, or it's just not worth it. Right. There's no job, just like work. That's not of interest to me at all. I have like a Defender 90 Land Rover from 1993 that was always my favorite car as a kid. In fact, randomly have it on my hat here. So I'm working on that, when I have time, like, I'm going to put in new seats or I'm going to put in whatever. So like, typically I'm not a handyman person at all. My dad he does wood turning also. So like, I'm kind of learning some new traits over the last year, like, putting in some things. It's hard work. It's hard work what they're doing, but it's engaging, entertaining for me. So, I would say the Defender 90 is fun. The golf is fun. Being with friends is fun. I still keep in touch with my high school and college buddies all the time and get together with them.
Lanny, if people want to learn more about you and Allied Title, where can they go to and find out more information?
Yeah, so Allied's website is closeatallied.com. That creative agency I was telling you was pandabirdcreative.com if you're interested in that. And then, you'll be able to find all our contact information on Allied's website and kind of what we're up to and what we're doing.
Great. Thank you so much for coming on. Really had a fun time.
Hey, I really appreciate it. Let's get some golf together maybe. But I really enjoyed it, and thanks for having me.
Of course, the pleasure's all mine. Take care.
Thanks. Bye.